ओम पवित्रं चरितं यस्याः पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिण्यै तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु श्रद्धारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। My salutations at the holy feet of Divine Almighty. My respectful pranams to revered Swami Satyamayanandaji Maharaj, the key speaker on this occasion during this international webinar on the subject religious education or spiritual education. My respects to Dr. Udupi Krishna, our Honorable Secretary of the esteemed institution, Seshadripuram Education Trust. My respects to Honorable Principal Dr. Satish, the conveners of the two study centers, Madhu Kumar, the convener of Vivekananda Study Center, Dr. Mahadev, convener of Gandhi Study Center. My respects to Mother Indira Krishnappa and my special wishes to our coordinator IQAC, the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of the college, Nagasudha. And my good wishes to all the directors of the educational institution and the staff members who did their might for the success of this program. At the outset, education has become a very tough concept to understand in the modern scenario. The reason behind this is we have forgotten what our ancestors said about this wonderful process of learning. Ancient India did not confine education to only the art of learning how to read and write. Rather, education, yoga, meditation, spirituality, life, all the terminologies what I mentioned just now, according to ancient Indian philosophy, they are all complementary to each other. So to start with, I shall bring to your kind notice about the three most important sciences that every human being is expected to know about. Revered Maharaj beautifully explained about Panchamahayajnas, and he correlated the concept in such a wonderful way that by inculcating these ideals, an individual can become a universal man, an individual can become an institution, and ultimately a human can get transformed into a human resource. So as I said, there are three sciences. The first science is called physical science. Physical science helps man to develop a relationship with the external environment, and he is being entrusted, he is being blessed with the great opportunity to utilize the benefits from the external environment to the best of his ability without damaging the external environment. This is what we call as the physical science every human being is expected to know about. And this is what our revered Maharaj defined while he explained about Bhuta Yajna. The second one is science of values. Man is a social animal. We are all very much aware of that. So we have so many people living together. We have to cooperate, coordinate. We must understand the people with whom we are living. And here and there we must have a greater degree of patience to make the show not only successful but ethical also. So for that, the science of values is of greater importance. So discipline, cooperation, coordination, understanding the people with whom we are living, it makes a great impact in the success of our individual lives too. The third and the final one is spiritual science. Yes, in the beginning I spoke about the science of the physical science, the science of nature, the external nature, Second one, the science of values. But even though now I am mentioning about the third science, it includes even the first two sciences. Science of spirituality means, according to Vedanta, and in the modern times, according to Swami Vivekananda, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity. We must know that Bhagavatam beautifully defined about the divinity of the soul in this shloka. Athamam sarva bhuteshu bhutatmanam kritalayam arhayet dana manabhyam maitri abhinnena chakshusha. That is what Vivekananda beautifully defined in the last century. He says, nobody is created without a purpose. God is dwelling in the hearts of each and every individual. Everyone is a temple. So, respecting our own brethren is as same as worshipping the divinity that is dwelling in every individual. So this is the way how we must develop and we must extend our relationship with the people with whom we are living. And the second concept is, even the society can be categorized into three groups. You have three different variety of people. The first group, they very much bent upon getting profit in their business transactions. They want to have more pleasure in their daily activities and pursuits. And they want to develop popularity amongst their relatives and friends. So this in brief can be mentioned like this. The first group of people wants 3 P's, P apostrophe S, the 3 P's I just mentioned about. To achieve these 3 P's, they need the intelligent quotient. The second category is, this is the group that wants genuine and long-standing relationship and peace of mind. For that, they need 3 H's. First one is happiness in their life. Secondly, harmony in family, corporate and social life. And finally, health, both physical and mental, to achieve the first 2 H's in our lives. To achieve this, they need EQ, that is emotional quotient, in addition to intelligent quotient. The third category is, this is the group, they not only want happiness, harmony and health, but also they want everlasting relationship with infinite happiness, joy and peace. Because human beings cannot remain contented with only the finite happiness, joy and peace. This group not only requires IQ and EQ, they require SQ, that is the spiritual quotient. One of our great Indian thinker, Dr. Bhagavan Das, he says, we are very familiar with the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. But we are very much in need of the 4th R, which means religion, which is more important than the first 3 R's. Then let us try to understand the word personality. We know individual, becoming a personality, becoming a citizen is the greatest task in everybody's life. Generally, personality in a very light sense is defined with respect to the physical look, with respect to the power of the physical body. But personality may be described as person's capacity or ability to integrate certain principles and habits deep within his nature. We are all familiar with the word evolution. We know about Darwin's phenomenon of evolution. But there comes the most important observation of ancient Indian rishis, who did not confine our phenomenon of evolution only to the level of organic. Rather, they could give a higher level of science, which is called spiritual evolution. That is, organic evolution has brought us from the stage of animals to the stage of human beings. Generally, we term it as Homo sapien. Survival of the fittest is one of the postulates propounded by Darwin, but Indian philosophers say that struggle for existence and survival of the fittest is the law of the jungle. This signifies only the victory of physical power. The next stage of evolution involves human beings becoming social beings. Then only the common aims and objectives of the humanity may be delivered, may be achieved, without having to struggle against nature and the creatures of the jungle. At this stage, the intelligence or brain of man won a victory over brawn of animals. But the selfish instinct remains. Then the new stage of evolution is man regarding his fellow beings as members of the global family. This is what I defined in the shloka of Bhagavatam, and this is what I defined when I explained about the spiritual science. To develop harmony with all the people of my society and to have success here, we must have the education in the truest sense. Keeping this in mind, Swami Vivekananda defined, we want that type of education by which character is formed, strength of the mind is increased, intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. So spirituality now is meant not only for monks, nuns, and ascetics, it is meant even for the rich and busy people of the society. It is needed for tycoons and technocrats, because knowledge is becoming integral, outlook, vision, and life are becoming integral all over. At this juncture, we are all very much fascinated towards the inventions of science And the younger generation, particularly in a developing country like India, he wants to analyze every spiritual and religious truth in the light of science. See, this is a challenging question before each and every man who wants to know the exact difference between science and spirituality. This question was answered long back. This is maybe a modern question, but we have ancient solutions for such questions. I shall explain in brief. Science has radically altered human life and thought in many ways. We have to agree that. Science has demonstrated its awesome power to not only to destroy man, but also fetch him so much of benefits in his day-to-day life. We should know that science is based on reality. This is the key point of our discussion. Science is based on reality. Science is based on directly the observable reality, not on any speculation or imagination. Reality means truth. It is directly verifiable. It is verifiable truth. It is universal truth. It is directly verifiable, I told you, available to all the people all over the world. It is this truth that gives power to science. But the restriction or confinement to material science is, science can give you the truth that is confined to the sense perception. Whatever the senses perceive, that we treat in physics, chemistry, astrophysics, nuclear physics, so on and so forth. There is a science which is beyond sense perception, and that is being defined as spiritual science by ancient rishis of India. You just imagine, till last century, the world was so fond of Darwin's phenomenon of evolution. But when Vivekananda defined about spiritual evolution on the Western platforms, that we believe in evolution and not in revolutions. We believe in the spiritual evolution of an individual. That was a new light to the whole Western world when Swami Vivekananda addressed on the occasion of the World Parliament of Religions. So, every individual who wants to know, who wants to develop a clarity of thought with respect to science and religion, or science and spirituality, must first accept that the material science can give the truth which is perceived only by the senses. But we have a greater strata of truth, a greater level of truth, which is beyond sense perception. At this juncture, I want to bring to your kind notice about even the harmony of science and religion. Science and religion, they deal with two planes of reality. Science deals with empirical plane, whereas religion deals with transcendental plane. This is most important. Science and religion, that's why we say they are complementary but not contradictory. The second point is, science is based on eternal truths and the law of empirical world, whereas a religion is based on eternal truths of transcendental plane. The third point to be noted is, as in the case of scientific truths, I repeat, as in the case of scientific truths. The truths of religion are verifiable. This is what Swami Vivekananda very clearly defined in many of his speeches. He says, the way you verify an experiment in a chemistry lab, in the same way you can verify the religious truths. This verification takes place at the transcendental plane. That should be in our mind. The fourth most important aspect is science seeks the explanation of all phenomena within the system. It rejects supernaturalism, whereas Vedanta regards God as immanent in the universe and all phenomena are explained within the system. Even the Judeo-Christian tradition regards God as the creator who remains outside the creation and explains all the phenomena as being caused by the divine will. So here we will get a clarity of thought, the complementary aspects between religion and science, the relation between science and spirituality. Even scientists, very renowned scientists, could honor the great conclusions, the utterances of Upanishads and the Prasthanatrayas in general. To quote one or two, I want to bring to your kind notice the conclusion of Hungarian chemist Albert Szent-Györgyi, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1937 for discovering vitamin C. He says like this: snakes can grow only by bursting their skins. Snakes can grow only by bursting their skins. Molting has to be a very painful process. This is what? This is a process where the skin gets burst in case of snakes. And if molting doesn't take place, the snake has to die. Likewise, mankind grows by bursting the outgrowth skin of antiquated ideas, thinking, and institutions. This is what Vivekananda defined while explaining about education. Swami Vivekananda says, the process of education will accelerate the rate of evolution. Life is not a journey from something like false to truth. Rather, it is a journey from truth to truth, of course, from lower truth to higher truth. It is a journey from known to unknown. So, in the words of Györgyi, we come to a conclusion that the mankind can achieve evolution by the outgrowth of skin, which was earlier confined to the antiquated ideas and which had a limited thinking in the beginning and which was limited to a few institutions in the beginning. Later on, he will grow into a universal man when he very eagerly and trustworthily try to know about the different higher facets of truth. Bertrand Russell, in his book, The Impact of Science on Society, says, unless men increase in wisdom as much as in knowledge. Increase of knowledge without increase of wisdom will increase the sorrow. This again speaks about the importance of religion and spirituality, and we must not confine our education merely to material science, merely to some reading and writing, so on and so forth. The wrong conception of life is the root cause for all the conflicts in this world. We have very limited concept about life. Swami Vivekananda defined life as the unfoldment and development of a being under the circumstances tending to proceed down. All our troubles are due to our spiritual ignorance. Alexis Carrel, the author of the book Man the Unknown, defines that in man, things which are not measurable are more important than the things that are measurable. Then what is spirituality? Spirituality is a higher plane of our life. Spiritual life insists us to stick on the pedestal of values and ethics. Spirituality can produce the class in the society, whereas the materialistic life will produce only the mass, the common mass in the society. Unless and until we cultivate the habit of blocking the hatredness, we cannot give out our energy in the fullest extent. One of the greatest football coaches, late Rockne, said that a player cannot have sufficient energy unless his emotions are under spiritual control. He was not willing to take anybody on his team who did not maintain a genuinely friendly feeling for everyone in the team. He says, I have to get the most energy out of a man and have discovered that it cannot be done if he hates another man. Hate blocks his energy and hate blocks energy and he is not up to par until he eliminates it and develops a friendly feeling. Let us honor the experiences of the world historians. To quote one such example, let us quote Arnold Toynbee's utterance. He says, in these circumstances, it might be forecast that in the next chapter of world's history, mankind would seek compensation for the loss of much of its political, economic, and perhaps even domestic freedom by putting more of its treasure into spiritual freedom. That means to say, civilization is material, culture is spiritual. Civilization can be compared to the physical body, culture to the soul. Physical body can give us happiness, but soul gives us peace. True culture is humanizing factor. Without our spiritual outlook, there can be no high and enduring culture. In toto, culture and self-control are synonymous terms. Before I conclude, I want to quote two more most important aspects. Bhagavad Gita, a very practical Vedanta, the science of human development, defines the greatest importance of doing good deeds. Karma Yoga. What is the importance of Karma Yoga? This is again, if you are a religious man, if you have greater affinity to develop yourself into a spiritual personality, that is what Swami Vivekananda very frequently insisted us to follow. Spiritualize your day-to-day life. These are the words of Vivekananda. Bhagavad Gita says, always keep in your mind that responsibilities and privileges, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. The greater the responsibilities and the duties one undertakes, the greater will be the privileges and rights one can enjoy. And it cautions every human being like this: to demand rights and privileges without discharging the responsibilities and duties properly is unethical and suicidal. So this is the greatest ideal. It should be the greatest discipline before each and every individual. You should never demand for privileges and rights without rendering our responsibilities and duties properly and sincerely. When a person discharges his responsibilities sincerely, privileges has to come unsought. You need not demand for that. It will come unsought. We have to work without respite. We have to work in the spirit of yajna. That means without selfish motives. We have to learn to renew ourselves in the end of the day in spite of tension and restlessness which are the characteristics of today's society. We must renew ourselves. This is something like self-vigilance. We are all very much used to the word vigilance. We are familiar with the terminology. But self-vigilance is observing our own self, correcting ourselves, and getting more inspiration for tomorrow's work to get executed. We have to work to remove the evils and sufferings so that we can increase the good and happiness of the world at large. As we go on working, we will find that the world will be a continuous mixture of good and bad, and it will have happiness and suffering. It is an eternal truth. But then we may ask, then what is the use of doing only the good deeds all through our life? The greatest benefit is, in our attempt to perfect the world, we will end up perfecting ourselves. This is what the essence of religion and spirituality. Even Abraham Maslow, the humanistic psychologist, says, he defines the characteristics of a very successful man. In brief, I shall mention about that. One must be reality-centered. Unless and until we are reality-centered, we cannot do justice in our profession. We must not only accept ourselves, and we must accept other people with whom we are living. We must always orient our mind, heart, and hand towards problem solving rather than protecting and nurturing our ego, the unripe ego, We must be spontaneous. We must be very creative. We may be very comfortable in the midst of people, but we must also inculcate within us the culture of enjoying the solitude. We must resist the social pressures also. And as much as possible, we must develop intimate personal relationships with people. If at all, if you want to learn even the smallest thing from a layman, be prepared to do that and never ignore learning just because that you have to learn from a most common man in the society. Maslow finally concludes, cultivate the culture of respecting the mystical experience. This is what we call as religion and spiritual experiences. I shall conclude my lecture by quoting from this beautiful book. This book is the Supreme Court of India judgment that took place on 12th September 2002. So, in the matter of the National Curriculum Framework for School Education, the Justice Shriman D.M. Dharmadhikari, in his judgment, he mentioned the most important aspects propounded by most revered Swami Ranganathanandaji Maharaj, and our Honorable Justice Dharmadhikari quoted 4 to 5 points. The extract from the text, Eternal Values for a Changing Society, Volume 3, under the title, Education for Human Excellence. Point number 1, in his judgment, he says, and this is an extract from Ranganathanandaji's writings, the training of our children to an appreciation of our national culture and our heritage, and to equip them with the desire and the capacity to enhance the same and leave to posterity a richer legacy. Second point, the training of our children in talents and capacities by which they become productive units of society and the source of its economic strength. Number 3, the equipment of our children with the qualities of courage and vision to protect our newly won national freedom, to preserve its democratic structure, function and liberties, and to carry the same to ever wider fields and ever higher levels. Fourth point, the training of our children in virtues and graces that will make them emotionally stable individuals and enable them to live in peace, harmony and cooperation with their fellow citizens. The fifth point, the training of our children in virtues and graces that will make them international in their outlook and sympathies and enable them to live in peace, harmony and cooperation with the emerging world community. Sixth point, the training of our children to an awareness of the spiritual. I am very particular about this. The training of our children to an awareness of the spiritual and trans-social dimension of the human personality and to a converging life endeavor in the realization of this fact in and through life and action. Finally, Swamiji concludes, it is only thus that our education will become a fit discipline to help to continue the march of Indian tradition from an impressive past to a glorious future. From an impressive past to a glorious future. This is in the judgment of Justice Sri Dharmadhikari, and these are the extracts from the text Eternal Values for a Changing Society. And by observing such great ideals, definitely we will come to know the importance of religious education or spiritual education, the eternal need of any individual to grow into a citizen, to grow into a personality, to grow into a Vishwamana, so on and so forth. So, I am very happy that our Vivekananda Study Center of Seshadripuram Educational Trust, especially our evening degree college, could organize today's international webinar and invite our most respected Swamiji from Seattle, United States of America, Illinois Center, Vedanta Center of Illinois, revered Swami Satyamayananji Maharaj, and I am equally happy to get an invitation from the management to speak on this wonderful subject. I thank one and all for extending me this opportunity to be a part of this international webinar. Thank you very much. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.